Hey guys, tonight we're easing gently into one of the strangest naps history has ever accidentally taken, the rise and fall of Quaaludes. Not the Wall Street movie version, not the velvet-roped nightclub fantasy. I mean the real story of a little white pill that started out as a polite medical assistant and somehow ended up blamed for half of the 1970s. This is a story about chemistry, capitalism, bad decisions, worse outfits, and a nation collectively deciding that maybe being extremely relaxed all the time was not a sustainable lifestyle choice. So before we begin, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy this kind of thing. Leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Statistically, it is either very late or emotionally late. Now dim the lights, turn on a fan or some gentle white noise, get comfortable, and allow your shoulders to drop at least 1 inch. Let's pause for a moment. Have you ever wondered how a prescription sedative becomes a party drug? Who decided that a medication meant for anxiety would pair nicely with disco lights and shag carpeting? What does it say about a society when doctors hand out relaxation like breath mints? Could you survive a decade where everyone is aggressively calm, slightly wobbly, and deeply convinced they are doing great? And how exactly does something go from medical miracle to public enemy number one without ever changing its name? And now, congratulations. You have just woken up in the mid-20th century. The ashtrays are full, the coffee is terrible, and somewhere a pharmaceutical executive is smiling. Welcome to the long, weird nap. You begin in a place of pure intention, a clean laboratory, white coats, quiet optimism. Scientists are not trying to start a party, they are trying to help you sleep. Quaaludes, or methaqualone, are developed in the 1950s as a potential malaria treatment. That does not work out, but the pill has a talent for making you feel deeply, profoundly relaxed. You are calm. You are sleepy. You are not thinking about your problems. Science shrugs and says close enough. The lab itself smells faintly of disinfectant and ambition. Glass beakers clink softly, like they're trying not to interrupt anyone. You imagine earnest researchers peering at clipboards, nodding thoughtfully, and saying things like interesting and promising, which in science means we have no idea why this is happening, but let's write it down. No one here is wearing platform shoes. No one is imagining disco balls. This is a world of straight-back chairs and sensible haircuts. You, in this moment, are not a future cautionary tale. You are a collection of symptoms: trouble sleeping, anxiety, a nervous system that refuses to clock out. The post-war world is loud, busy, and humming with expectation, and you are expected to keep up politely. So when a compound comes along that gently presses the dimmer switch on your brain, everyone leans in a little closer. Originally, methaqualone is tested for malaria because the mid-century pharmaceutical industry is basically throwing chemicals at diseases and seeing what sticks. This one does not stick to malaria. Malaria remains unimpressed. But something else happens. Test subjects get drowsy, pleasantly so, not knocked out cold, not panicked, just eased, like your mind has been placed on a comfortable shelf. This is exciting. Sedatives already exist, but they are intense. Barbiturates are effective but unforgiving. Take a little too much and suddenly everyone is speaking very slowly while a doctor frowns. What you have here is something that feels gentler, safer, the kind of pill that wears a cardigan instead of a leather jacket. You can almost hear the collective sigh of relief from doctors everywhere. Finally, something they can prescribe without immediately worrying they've ruined Thanksgiving. This pill doesn't scream danger. It whispers rest. It suggests a nap. It implies you'll still be able to answer the phone if it rings. At this stage, nobody is thinking long term. Nobody is picturing addiction charts or congressional hearings. You are living in the honeymoon phase of a drug's life when it still has good intentions and a clean reputation. The warning labels are small, the optimism is large, and you, sitting here in this lab-adjacent moment of history, feel hopeful. Because if science can bottle calm, maybe everything else will fall into place. Maybe the world doesn't need to be fixed. Maybe you just need to feel a little less awake while it happens. It's a modest beginning. No fireworks, no headlines. Just a quiet realization that humans really like not feeling stressed. And with that realization, the pill takes its first small step out of the lab and toward your bedside table. At the time, it feels harmless, helpful even, a solution. History, of course, is already stretching, preparing to trip over its own feet. But for now, everything is neat, labelled, and optimistic. You swallow the idea whole. You are now living in a time when doctors are generous, very generous. Anxiety, stress, boredom, mild sadness, severe sadness, existing. All of these qualify for a prescription. Quaaludes slide neatly into the medical world as a safer alternative to barbiturates. You take one, and the edges of life soften like a badly focused photograph. This is the era where a doctor's office feels less like a place of caution and more like a polite drive-through. You describe your symptoms, the doctor nods thoughtfully, and a small pad of paper appears as if by magic. There is no interrogation, no lifestyle questions, no long discussion about coping mechanisms. You are tired, you are stressed, here you go. The waiting room smells like stale coffee and optimism. Everyone is smoking, including the receptionist, possibly the furniture. Mental health is not yet something you unpack. It is something you manage quietly, preferably without inconveniencing anyone else. And Quaaludes promise exactly that. Calm without conversation. You leave the pharmacy with a small bottle that rattles reassuringly in your pocket. It feels official, approved. The label has your name on it, which makes it feel personal, like the pill knows you. You are not abusing anything. You are following instructions. This is important to you. At home, you take your first proper dose. You sit on the couch. Maybe you watch television, which at this point ends early and goes fuzzy on purpose. The pill does not hit you like a wave. It seeps in. Your shoulders drop. The constant background noise in your head turns down a notch. Thoughts still exist, but they move slower, like they're wading through shallow water. This feels responsible. You are not partying. You are not escaping. You are managing. In a decade obsessed with productivity and appearances, this feels like a small private mercy. You are calm enough to function, relaxed enough to tolerate your life. It's a perfect balance. For now. Doctors love Quaaludes because patients love them. Patients stop calling back, they stop complaining, they sleep, they smile politely. From a clinical perspective, everything looks great. The pill is doing its job. No one is overdosing in alarming numbers. No one is panicking. This is the quiet phase. Refills are easy, almost casual. You mention stress at work and suddenly you have another month's supply. Nobody warns you too sternly. The language is gentle. Take as needed. Avoid alcohol. Everyone says that part, but nobody emphasizes it. It's more of a suggestion than a rule. You start to associate the pill with relief. A bad day ends more smoothly. A tense evening dissolves faster. You are learning, without realizing it, that calm can come from a bottle. Not meditation, not rest, not boundaries, chemistry. And because this is the golden age of prescriptions, you are not alone. Everyone seems to be on something. Pills for nerves, pills for sleep, pills for energy, pills to counteract the pills. It's a pharmaceutical ecosystem, and you are participating responsibly. You think. There is a quiet confidence in this system, a belief that science has solved discomfort, that modern life may be overwhelming, but medicine has it handled. You trust the white coats. They trust the data they have so far, which is not much, but it feels like enough. At this point, Quaaludes are still respectable. They live in bathroom cabinets, not nightclubs. They are discussed in low voices, if at all. They are just another tool in the grand project of getting through the day without unraveling. You fall asleep easily. That feels like a victory. And in this moment, it is. History has not yet cleared its throat. For now, you are simply resting, wrapped in the soft confidence of a society that believes it has found the answer. You close your eyes, calm and compliant, unaware that this generosity will eventually come with strings attached. You swallow the pill as directed. This detail matters now, before it stops mattering later. You take it with a sip of water, maybe standing at the kitchen counter, maybe already sitting down just in case. You wait. Nothing dramatic happens. No fireworks, no swirling colours. Just a subtle pause, like the world has taken a breath and forgotten to let it out. At first you wonder if it's working at all. You check your watch, you shift your weight, you consider turning on the television. And then quietly, something loosens. Your jaw unclenches. Your shoulders slide downward, as if they were tired of holding themselves up in the first place. The constant internal narration. Did I forget something? Am I behind? Is this normal? Drops to a whisper. It feels like sinking into warm bath water, except the bath is your own nervous system. You are still aware, still present. But the urgency has gone missing. Problems exist, but they feel abstract, like something that belongs to a different version of you. Tomorrow you can deal with that. Right now, you is horizontal. Your body feels heavier, but in a pleasant way. Gravity has increased slightly, just enough to keep you from making unnecessary movements. Standing up seems optional. Talking feels like a long-term project. You are not asleep. You are simply not interested in being fully awake. This is where Quaaludes earn their reputation. The calm is not sharp or forced. It does not slam into you. It gently escorts you to a quieter room in your own mind and closes the door behind you. The lights are low, the furniture is soft, nothing is demanding your attention. You notice your coordination is a bit off. Not alarming, just delayed. You reach for a glass and your hand arrives a moment later than expected. It's like your brain sent the message and your body replied, "Got it, be right there." You laugh softly at yourself. Everything feels slightly amusing now. Emotionally, you feel buffered. Annoyances bounce off instead of sticking. That thing you said earlier that keeps replaying in your head? Gone. The news you heard this morning? Irrelevant. You are wrapped in a thin chemical blanket that makes the world feel manageable. This is the part nobody warns you about properly. How nice it feels. How reasonable it seems. You are not euphoric. You are not wild. You are just okay. Better than okay. Smooth around the edges. And for a brain that spends most of its time buzzing, this feels like a miracle. You tell yourself you deserve this. You had a long week. You worked hard. You're not abusing anything. This is medicine. You are doing exactly what the label says. And the label does not mention how tempting it will be to feel like this again. As the minutes stretch, your eyelids grow heavy. Thoughts drift in slow, unconnected loops. You might start a sentence and forget to finish it. That's fine. The sentence wasn't going anywhere important. Your body sinks deeper into the couch, like it's trying to merge with it on a molecular level. Sleep arrives gently, without the usual negotiation. No tossing, No replaying conversations, just darkness and rest. You slip under easily, carried by the certainty that everything will be fine if you don't think about it too much. And that is the hook. Not chaos, not rebellion, just relief. The kind that makes you wonder why you ever tolerated feeling tense in the first place. You drift off believing this is what balance feels like. You have no reason yet to be suspicious. You return to the doctor with good news. You slept. You feel calmer. You're less irritable, less tense, less likely to snap at the television for no reason. The doctor smiles. This is the outcome everyone wants. A successful treatment. A patient who feels better without a dramatic backstory. From the doctor's side of the desk, Quaaludes are a dream. Patients report improvement. Side effects seem mild. Compared to older sedatives, this pill feels polite. It doesn't knock people flat. It doesn't immediately send anyone to the emergency room. In a medical culture that values efficiency, this is a win. So prescriptions multiply. Not recklessly, at least not yet, but confidently. You mention stress and the doctor nods. You mention trouble sleeping and the pen is already moving. There's an unspoken agreement here. Modern life is stressful, and modern medicine is here to take the edge off without making a fuss. The exam room is quiet, clinical, reassuring. You sit on the paper-covered table while the doctor flips through your chart. There's no long discussion about long-term use. No warnings about dependency delivered with urgency. The tone is calm, almost casual. Take one at night, call if you need more, and you probably will need more. Not because anything is wrong, but because the bottle empties faster than you expect. A stressful week here, a restless night there. The pills do their job reliably, which encourages you to rely on them. It's a subtle shift. You don't notice it happening. Doctors, meanwhile, are responding to demand. Patients like you are calmer, more compliant, easier to manage. In an era before detailed long-term studies that feels like success. Medicine often learns by doing, and right now it is doing a lot of prescribing. There's also a cultural backdrop that makes this all feel normal. This is a time when pharmaceutical ads are cheerful and confident. Smiling people walk through fields, liberated from vague ailments by pills with friendly names. Quaaludes fit right in. They promise rest, composure, and a smoother version of you. You trust your doctor. The doctor trusts the pharmaceutical reps, the studies available, and the general sense that if something were truly dangerous, someone would have said so by now. There is a shared optimism, a belief that science has things under control. Refills become routine. You don't feel like you're escalating. You're maintaining. There's a difference, you tell yourself. You're not chasing a feeling. You're preventing discomfort. That sounds responsible. In some offices, Quaaludes become a go-to solution. Nervous patients, insomniacs, people going through divorce, grief, job stress. The pill is versatile. It doesn't ask questions. It doesn't require lifestyle changes. It simply smooths things over. The problem is that smoothness can be seductive. When the world feels sharp without the pill starts to feel necessary. But no one is framing it that way yet. The language is still medical, controlled, safe. Doctors are not villains here. They are working with the information they have in a system that rewards quick fixes and visible results. And the results look good. Patients are calmer. Complaints decrease. Everyone moves on to the next appointment. You leave the office with another prescription folded neatly in your pocket. It feels like permission, validation, proof that this is fine, and for now it mostly is. History, however, is quietly taking notes. At some point, without any formal announcement, the pills start travelling. Not far at first. A friend mentions them at a dinner party. A co-worker jokes about how well they sleep now. Someone offers you one across a coffee table casually, like they're passing gum. You hesitate for half a second, then remember you have a prescription. This is normal. This is fine. The setting changes. You are no longer taking Quaaludes in the quiet of your home with the intention of rest. You are taking them before social events, before awkward dinners, before nights out that promise to be loud, crowded, and emotionally exhausting. The pill adapts easily. It works wherever you take it. You notice something interesting. When you take a Quaalude and then go out, the world feels easier. Conversations flow, music feels warmer. Other people seem less threatening, less annoying. Your usual self-consciousness is muted. You are still you, just smoother, slower, and oddly confident. Word spreads the way it always does, not through official channels, but through experience. Someone says it helps take the edge off. Someone else says it pairs well with a drink. Someone else says it makes dancing feel like floating. The pill develops a reputation, and reputations travel faster than warnings. The pharmacy no longer feels like the center of this story. Living rooms, parties, clubs, these become the new distribution hubs. The pill bottle gets passed around, rattling softly like a secret. You stop thinking of Quaaludes as medicine and start thinking of them as an option. This is where the line blurs. You are still telling yourself this is under control. You know how much to take, you've done it before. Nothing bad happened. The setting has changed, but the logic feels the same. If it helps you sleep, why wouldn't it help you socialize? The problem is that intention matters. A pill designed to quiet your nervous system does not know the difference between bedtime and dance floor. It does its job regardless. Muscles loosen, reflexes slow, judgment softens. In a crowded room that can feel liberating or dangerous, depending on timing and dosage, you begin to notice that people who don't have prescriptions are also taking them. No one seems particularly concerned. The pill has not been framed as dangerous yet. It doesn't carry the stigma of harder drugs. It's a prescription sedative. That makes it feel safer by default. You might even feel a little smug. You know what this is. You've been prescribed it. You're not some reckless person. You're informed. That sense of control is comforting, even as the context slips further from the original purpose. The music gets louder. The lights get softer. Someone suggests another round. Someone else suggests another pill. You don't see a reason not to. You've already crossed the threshold from medical use to social use, and it didn't feel like a dramatic decision. It felt like convenience. This is how the pharmacy loses its grip. Not through rebellion, but through familiarity. Quaaludes become part of the background, a tool for smoothing experiences rather than treating symptoms. They are no longer just for night, they are for whenever life feels a bit too sharp. And life, it turns out, feels sharp quite often. You don't notice the shift as it happens. You just notice that the pill is with you more places than it used to be. In pockets, in purses, in conversations. The calm is portable now. Once that happens, there is no easy way to put it back on the shelf. You blink and suddenly the world has changed. The 1970s have arrived with all the subtlety of a disco ball dropped from a skyscraper. Everything is brown. The furniture is brown. The walls are brown. Even your emotions seem to have absorbed some kind of sepia filter. And Quaaludes fit this decade like bell-bottoms on a Saturday night. The era is loud, yes, but it's a softer kind of loud. A hum of vinyl records, clinking cocktail glasses, and the occasional groan from someone who miscalculated the effort of putting on platform shoes. You walk into a living room where shag carpet is so thick it swallows your feet entirely. You feel like a footless monk wandering a miniature forest. Quaaludes help. They flatten the edges of discomfort. You are no longer tense. You are pleasantly floaty. People are experimenting. The cultural mood encourages it. Music, fashion, lifestyle, all of it whispers, "Relax, man. Take it easy." In this environment, Quaaludes are almost a moral accessory. They align perfectly with wide collars, funky socks, and a general belief that life is better if you move slightly slower. Your nerves are less interesting than your tie-dye shirt anyway. Even mundane tasks feel softened. Cooking dinner, doing laundry, paying bills, all of them proceed with a gentle, deliberate inefficiency. The pill makes your brain run in slow motion, and suddenly, it doesn't matter that you're late to everything. Your late arrival has a rhythm, a grace, a 1970s kind of dignity. And it's not just you. Everyone seems a little off kilter, a little mellowed. Friends, co-workers, neighbours, they all float in a similar chemical haze. It creates a community of calm where nothing is urgent and no one judges a paused reaction time. Conversation meanders like a lazy river, everyone drifting in the current of subtle sedation. This is also the decade of contrasts. Excess and leisure, energy and sloth, disco nights and lazy Sundays. Quaaludes are excellent companions because they help you navigate both extremes. Feeling overwhelmed at the office? One pill. Facing a crowded dance floor? One pill. Feeling existential dread about life in brown polyester? One pill, maybe two. You notice that your movements are no longer precise but soft. You can trip over your own feet and it barely matters. Falling becomes funny rather than humiliating. Life feels cushioned, like someone has placed extra padding around every edge. You might even start to like the wobbly confidence it gives you. And yet, there's a strange clarity in this softness. While your body moves slower, your mind observes. You watch disco balls spin, people laugh, records scratch. Everything is vivid, yet removed. You are in a bubble that lets you appreciate chaos without being trapped by it. By the end of the day, the lines between medical use and social ease are gone. Quaaludes are no longer just a solution to insomnia or anxiety. They are a lifestyle accessory, an emblem of the decade's laid-back bravado. They do not scream danger. They whisper fun, freedom, and slight irresponsibility. And for now, that is exactly what everyone wants. You sink into the shag carpet, the pill softening both your body and your sense of time. The 1970s are alive, loud, and mellowed in perfect harmony with a little chemical assistance. You close your eyes and think, maybe this is what life was meant to feel like, even if it's only temporary. The era has arrived, and you are floating comfortably in its embrace. You take a Quaalude before going out. At first it seems like a good idea. The music is calling, friends are calling, that dimly lit nightclub is calling, and you're ready. Mostly. The pill seeps in slowly, a gentle fog over your thoughts, like someone whispered, "Take it easy, buddy," and your body agreed. The lights are bright, the colours blur, and everything seems both vivid and distant. Your feet move in time with the music, eventually. There's a half-second lag, like your body is trying to figure out if it should be dancing or just nodding politely. You look around. Everyone else is doing the same thing. Disco has never been more forgiving. Your reflexes are off. Someone bumps into you. You sway like a slow-motion pendulum, barely catching yourself. Your arms, normally precise, now flail just enough to create accidental choreography. It's not elegant, it's spectacularly uncoordinated, but the crowd doesn't mind. You are all drifting together in the soft chemical hum. You notice how the pill turns mild embarrassment into humour. You trip over a platform shoe. Someone laughs. You laugh. You spin a little too far and almost fall into the mirror ball, which is fine because it is enormous and forgiving. Every minor disaster becomes a comedic vignette, a story you will half remember later and exaggerate proudly. It is seductive, this slow-motion freedom. Movement is softened, conversations are easier. Social anxiety, if it existed at all, has melted like ice in a warm drink. You float from group to group, smiling at people you barely know, nodding at jokes you barely hear. Time itself seems to have been stretched slightly. 1 minute lasts for 3, but in a good way. Of course there is a risk. Mixing with alcohol is tempting because everything else is slowed down. You feel untouchable. Your laughter is softer, your response is smoother. But each sip and each step is buffered by chemistry. You are less reactive, less immediate. The world responds in slow motion, and you float along with it. You also notice small details that normally would irritate you. The sticky floor doesn't bother you. The terrible smell of spilled drinks becomes just part of the ambience. The person dancing too close? Harmless. You are floating, untouchable in your mellowed state. Everything is slightly absurd, and that absurdity is comforting. Music pulses through your body, unrelenting and soft at once. Your movements sink eventually. The disco ball spins above. Mirrors multiply your floating reflection infinitely. You are everywhere and nowhere at once. Coordination is secondary. Feeling good is primary. And in this haze, conversation takes on a new rhythm. You speak, pause, respond. Half your sentences arrive a beat late. People forgive it. They are doing the same thing. The pill creates a collective rhythm, a gentle misalignment that somehow works perfectly. By the end of the night, the lights dim, and your brain finally starts to catch up with your body. You are tired, happy, uncoordinated in the best possible way. You have survived a social environment that usually demands alertness, and you did it with grace, or at least something resembling it. Quaaludes have transformed the night. The world has slowed down. You move like a dream. You laugh like a dream. And you leave the club floating, soft and strangely accomplished, carrying the delicate memory of being lighter than gravity itself. Somewhere along the line, Hollywood notices. Celebrities, always chasing new ways to appear effortless, start whispering about Quaaludes in private circles. They don't need a pill to sleep. They need one to feel like a perfectly smooth, slightly wobbly version of themselves while the cameras roll, scripts are read, and awards are collected. You can imagine the scene. A film set in the late 70s, lights glaring, equipment humming, and someone casually sliding a small bottle across a polished table. For the nerves, they say. Nobody is judging. Everyone is curious. One pill becomes 2, one scene becomes 3 takes, and suddenly the line between performance and sedation is pleasantly fuzzy. In these circles, Quaaludes are glamorous. They are part of the invisible wardrobe, like a hidden accessory that smooths your edges. Your walk becomes languid, your gestures slightly delayed but charming, your laughter soft and cinematic. Nobody notes the chemistry behind it, only the polished outcome. You appear relaxed, magnetic, effortlessly in control, even when your limbs are calculating their next move a half second late. Parties, of course, are another story. They are smoky, crowded, and loud. Music throbs. Mirrors reflect every misstep. But with a Quaalude tucked neatly in a pocket, everything softens. Conversations stretch lazily. Arguments dissolve before they start. Everyone is smiling, floating, moving just slightly out of sync with the chaos. It is the kind of elegance that seems accidental but is chemically assisted. The reputation of the pill grows by association. If stars are using it, it must be sophisticated, refined, not dangerous, just a little indulgent. You start hearing names, actors, musicians, socialites, all casually mentioned in the same breath as the drug. It is no longer a prescription, it is a lifestyle, quietly endorsed by those who shape trends. And yet there is a subtle irony. You watch these famous people, polished on the outside, wobbling slightly under the influence. It is glamorous until it isn't. The camera lens never captures the moments of imbalance, the brief confusion, the soft collapse into chairs or couches. The pill's smooth appearances, but not reality. You begin to see how perception and effect can diverge. On-screen grace versus backstage wobble. Public adoration versus private dependency. The pill offers one, hides the other. It is effective, discreet, and extremely persuasive. Even in Hollywood, the narrative is seductive. Calm, controlled, appealingly sluggish. That's the look. Everyone wants it. Everyone participates, and nobody yet talks about the long-term consequences because the present is too bright, too fun, too cinematic to care. You imagine yourself on the set, slipping quietly into this culture. You laugh softly as a director yells, "Action!" and your body responds just a fraction of a second late, perfectly in sync with everyone else. The pill has transformed your experience into a slow-motion ballet of charm, comfort, and barely contained chaos. By the time you leave, you understand why the pill is famous. Not because it solves problems, not because it heals anything, but because it makes the world feel like it's moving at exactly the right speed, even when it isn't. And in Hollywood, that is everything. Somewhere in the mid-70s, Quaaludes start picking up nicknames. Ludes, disco biscuits. The slang is playful, almost affectionate. It softens the edges of a potent sedative, transforming it from medical marvel into something friendly, approachable, and most importantly, easy to talk about in casual conversation. You are at a party, perhaps wearing polyester that clashes with the shag carpet in just the right way. Someone passes a small pill across the table. "Want a lude?" they ask. The word is light, whimsical. It doesn't sound dangerous. It sounds like a little treat, like a mint or a chocolate square. You nod, intrigued by the casual familiarity, and suddenly, social anxiety is optional. The nicknames do more than amuse. They normalize the use. If it has a cute name, it can't be all bad, right? And everyone around you seems to agree. The room is full of people with half smiles, slow gestures, and soft laughter. The ludes are nestled into the culture. Part of the music, part of the vibe, part of the furniture. Language matters. Words shape perception. Calling it a disco biscuit rather than a sedative transforms it from medical intervention to lifestyle accessory. The pill becomes embedded in conversation, woven into jokes, stories, and passing references. You hear someone say, "Just one disco biscuit," and suddenly the floor feels like a cloud, and you understand the appeal immediately. It's also contagious. Slang spreads faster than instructions or warnings. People who might never have asked a doctor now inquire discreetly, "Where do you get these ludes?" The social network becomes a distribution channel. Word of mouth replaces prescription pads. Accessibility increases, as does cultural acceptance. You notice the subtle shift in behavior. Moods are calmer, movements softer. People laugh more easily, trip less noticeably, and forgive social missteps because everyone is participating in the same chemically induced rhythm. The world feels coordinated without requiring effort. And there's a curious irony here. The pill, originally designed to calm nerves for therapeutic purposes, has now acquired an entirely new identity. It's fun, casual, almost indulgent. Its history is medical. Its present is social. Its future is, well, that's a story that will unfold in ways nobody anticipated. At the time, however, everything is light, playful, socially lubricated. You are part of a culture that treats a sedative like an accessory, a secret handshake, a tiny bridge between anxiety and effortless cool. You take a lude, slowly, savouring the warmth that spreads through your body and your awareness. You notice the room soften around you. Conversations stretch lazily, music drifts, and time itself seems slightly stretched like a slow-motion film reel. By the end of the evening, the slang has done its work. The pill feels familiar, friendly, and harmless. You forget it is powerful. You forget the fine print. You are simply enjoying the hum, the atmosphere, the collective mellow of a decade that discovered how intoxicating calm can be when everyone participates willingly. The ludes are no longer just medicine. They are a cultural artifact, a social glue, a secret code whispered softly under disco lights. And you are part of it. You are at a party, the music pulsing lazily like a living organism, and the ludes are already softening your edges. Someone offers you a drink. It's brightly coloured, slightly sticky, and smells like happiness in a glass. You take it because moderation is for other people, and alcohol plus Quaaludes feels inevitable. The combination is immediate, not in a violent way, not like a punch to the chest, but in that slow, gentle haze where the room tilts just enough to make everything seem amusing and your limbs obey you after a polite delay. It's as if your body whispered, "Sure, we'll handle this," while your brain murmured, "Sounds fun," and everyone nodded quietly in agreement. Coordination becomes optional. You reach for the cup, and it takes a beat longer than expected to arrive. That's fine. Nobody notices. If anyone bumps into you, you sway like a character in a soft focus movie. Every step is exaggerated, but in a charmingly unintentional way. Balance is no longer a requirement. Elegance is subjective. The laugh comes easily. Conversations meander. Arguments dissolve in slow motion. Someone tells a story that normally would annoy you, and you chuckle a beat later than socially conventional. But it lands perfectly because everyone else is doing the same thing. Timing is flexible. Judgment is negotiable. Everything is softened. But of course, the pill plus alcohol is potent. Too much of either, and your body notices in ways your mind might not. Breathing slows. Reflexes diminish. You feel lighter than gravity intended, happier than prudence recommended, and slightly dangerous in a way you only recognize later. Yet in the moment, everything seems harmonious. Everyone feels harmonious. It's seductive. The combination encourages repetition. You discover that you can drift through a crowded room with minimal effort, laugh at missteps, forgive social faux pas, and feel oddly heroic in your mellow state. You think, maybe this is how humans were meant to experience parties. Slow, soft, vaguely absurd, and perfectly cushioned by chemistry. Memory becomes unreliable. You notice that your recollection of events feels like a dream edited by someone else. Scenes blur, conversations are fragments, the room tilts slightly, then rights itself. You are both participant and observer, floating in the collective slow motion of the party. Others are doing the same thing. The hum of music, the clink of glasses, the warm shared buzz of chemistry. Everyone is moving through it at slightly different speeds. And yet somehow it all works. The world is unusually forgiving when everyone is chemically inclined toward kindness, or at least delayed reaction. There is a quiet thrill in realizing how easily rules bend under these conditions. Social conventions relax. Personal anxieties dissolve. You feel clever, but in a lazy, unforced way. A hero of your own slow-motion universe. By the end of the night, the mixture has left a soft imprint. You are pleasantly exhausted, your coordination charmingly imperfect, your laughter lingering. You float home, almost literally, wrapped in the sedated glow of your choices. The next morning, of course, will remind you that your calm had a price. But for now, the world is soft. Time is slow. Music lingers in the ears of your nervous system. And you, gently swaying on the edge of consciousness, have discovered why so many people fell in love with this era of chemical ease. You wake up slowly, your body still moving at a different speed than your brain. The room is quiet, except for the distant hum of city life. Or maybe it's just your own metabolism catching up. Your head feels heavier than normal, as if gravity decided to linger a little longer on the neurons. You remember snippets, laughter, music, the clink of glasses, your feet wobbling across a dance floor like a confused cartoon character. The first thought is always the same. What exactly did I do last night? The memories arrive in fragments, like postcards sent from a parallel universe. You know you were at a party, you know you moved, you know you spoke. You're less sure about the words, the timing, or the people you spoke to. That's normal. That's the morning after a Quaalude night. You might find evidence of your activities. A crooked chair, a slightly askew lamp, a cocktail stain somewhere suspicious. These clues tell a story that your memory cannot fully reconstruct. You start piecing together your actions, half believing your own imagination. It's a puzzle where the pieces have softened edges. Your body aches slightly in places you didn't know existed. The soft haze of the pills lingers, like a warm fog that overstayed its welcome. Breathing feels easy, but slightly delayed. Reflexes are still off. You knock over a glass of water and catch it just in time, eventually. Everything is fine, sort of, and the room feels like a slightly surreal diorama of your past evening. Your body aches slightly in places you didn't know existed. The soft haze of the pills lingers, like a warm fog that overstayed its welcome. Breathing feels easy, but slightly delayed. Reflexes are still off. You knock over a glass of water and catch it just in time, eventually. Everything is fine, sort of, and the room feels like a slightly surreal diorama of your past evening. You realize the euphoric calm of the previous night was borrowed. There is a subtle cost. Coordination may be off, speech may have been delayed, and social consequences exist somewhere beyond your line of sight. You survived mostly. You remember smiling. That counts. And then there is the lingering psychological effect. Part of you feels smug. You were charming, relaxed, in control, or at least admirably wobbly. Another part feels cautious. Maybe next time, moderation will have more friends. Your brain is negotiating with itself, softly, politely, because it's not fully awake yet. You might check your phone, though it's smaller, brighter, and more aggressive than the hazy world you last inhabited. Messages arrive in bursts. Some are friendly, some are vague, some are mysterious. You squint at them, wondering if your responses will make sense, and eventually decide they will just have to wait. Breakfast, or at least the act of consuming something, feels like a complicated chemistry experiment. Your coordination is still off. Pouring cereal requires full attention. You marvel at your survival skills from the night before. You managed barely, without catastrophe. That counts as success. Slowly, the world starts to right itself. Your heartbeat returns to a sensible pace. Your muscles remember the rules of gravity. Your thoughts, still soft around the edges, begin to sharpen. And yet, the memory of the calm, the shared haze, the soft world of last night lingers. It is both comforting and unnerving. You sit quietly for a moment, acknowledging that relaxation can be intoxicating, that social ease can feel effortless, and that the cost is sometimes forgetting exactly how effortless it really was. The morning after is not dramatic. It is a gentle reckoning, a pause, a soft return from the chemically induced slow-motion ballet of the previous night. And somewhere deep down, You know this. The calm was powerful, the laughter real, and the memories, well, they will catch up eventually. But for now, the morning is gentle, if slightly confused, and the world is softly tilting back into place. By the late 70s, Quaaludes have fully escaped the confines of private homes, doctors' offices, and exclusive Hollywood parties. They are everywhere. Celebrity endorsements are whispered, disco floors are awash with their soft influence, and casual references in popular magazines normalize their use. You walk into a nightclub and everyone seems slower, softer, more forgiving. You realize this is not coincidence, this is culture. The pills carry a certain aura now, an unspoken promise that everything will feel smoother, calmer, funnier. You notice it in your friends. Laughter stretches a beat longer, dancing is slightly more uncoordinated, but infinitely more charming, and conversations feel like they have been edited for maximum warmth. The pill has become a social lubricant, the chemical equivalent of a gentle breeze. Marketing and media amplify the trend. Glossy photographs show smiling people in leisure wear, enjoying the night without a hint of tension. Advertisements for unrelated products now include side-by-side images of carefree, glowing faces, implicitly, subtly, associated with the soft, rounded calm Quaaludes provide. People start asking each other casually where they get the good stuff, and the social network becomes its own distribution system. You feel it too. Not at first, but gradually. The normalization is seductive. Ludes are no longer a private aid for sleep or anxiety. They are a tool for living softly in a world that often feels sharp. The idea that you could approach life gently, in slow motion, is appealing. It feels modern, sophisticated, and entirely desirable. At this point, the pill isn't just for individuals. It is part of a movement, a lifestyle accessory that signals belonging to a group that knows how to enjoy life without overexertion. You see it in the clubs, in social circles, and in whispered recommendations at parties. Everyone participates in the collective calm, sometimes consciously, sometimes not. But popularity comes with its own complications. The very thing that made Quaaludes charming, their smooth, mellowing effect, also makes them addictive in subtle ways that are difficult to track. You begin noticing patterns, someone always taking a pill before an event, another sliding one across the table in casual generosity. The pill's presence becomes routine, expected, almost invisible. Yet there is magic in this invisibility. Nobody is panicking. Nobody is screaming warnings. The soft haze continues. The world bends gently. You float in the calm, unaware that the subtle pull of habit is strengthening beneath the surface. You begin to see the cultural implications. The pill shapes behavior, softens tension, encourages sociability, and creates a shared rhythm. Life feels a little slower, a little more forgiving, and remarkably more fun. Quaaludes, once a quiet medical curiosity, have become the chemical soundtrack of a decade. By the end of the night, you are aware of only one truth. The world is mellower, laughter stretches longer, and the subtle chemical hum beneath it all is undeniable. You are both participant and observer, floating in a society temporarily softened by a small, round pill that promises ease and delivers. Well, at least the feeling of ease. And for now, that is enough. The era of the lude is in full swing, and you are blissfully along for the ride. You start noticing small cracks. At first they are subtle, a missed step, a nap that lingers too long, an unexpected clumsiness. Quaaludes are still glamorous, fun, socially acceptable, but you sense that the soft haze that once felt liberating can also be sticky. Not alarming yet, just noticeable. A gentle warning, like a whisper you almost ignore. people begin telling stories that are less about charm and more about misadventure. A friend forgets where they left their keys or their car. Someone else shows up late to work or misses an important phone call. The pills, so gentle in moderation, start revealing a quiet persistence. They stay longer than your memory expects. They affect more than your dance moves. Dependency creeps in quietly. It doesn't announce itself. One night becomes two. 2 nights become a habit. You begin to notice that social life feels sharper without the pill. Anxiety returns more aggressively when you haven't taken one. The soft calm is no longer just a bonus. It starts feeling like a necessity. And yet nobody wants to admit it. The culture is still glamorizing the lewds. Music, fashion, and nightlife continue to whisper, everything is smooth, everything is soft, everything is fine. You feel pulled between the allure of effortless calm and the quiet nagging awareness that relying on the pill is starting to shape your behavior. You watch as the line between medical use and recreational use blurs further. What started as a sleep aid is now a social accessory, a mood enhancer, a party companion. The consequences are subtle but cumulative. You are both amused and slightly alarmed by how normalized this has become. Stories circulate, sometimes exaggerated, sometimes factual. Accidents, overdoses, embarrassed recollections of nights that went too far. You begin to understand that the pill, so gentle in isolation, can be dangerous in combination with alcohol or when taken in excess. This is the beginning of its reputation as something more serious than a social lubricant. And yet, the world around you resists acknowledging it. People are still floating in the mellow haze, laughing softly, dancing slowly, and moving with the rhythm of chemical comfort. Awareness exists in whispers, not headlines. The glamorous side still dominates perception. You notice that subtle tension returning. Sleep is still possible without the pill, but it feels harder, less luxurious. Nights out feel sharper without the chemical cushion. Social anxiety, suppressed for a time, begins to reclaim its space. Quaaludes have shifted from tool to crutch almost imperceptibly. This is history in motion. The same pill that brought calm now brings caution, dependency, and the early outlines of a public health problem. You sense it in the stories you hear, the conversations you overhear, and the small hesitations you feel yourself. The era of carefree disco lewds is beginning to fray at the edges, and you, floating in this culture, realize that what felt like effortless fun has consequences. The haze is still soft, still alluring, but the shadows are growing longer. The story is about to take a turn, and nobody wants to admit that the party is ending. The world of nightclubs is intoxicating, and Quaaludes are everywhere, making it feel like life itself has been slowed down for your comfort. You notice how the soft haze transforms the floor into a forgiving surface and turns awkward social interactions into comedic vignettes. One misstep? Charming. One spilled drink? Funny. The chemical rhythm keeps the chaos manageable, but over time patterns emerge. People are taking lewds more frequently, sometimes multiple times a night. The pill, once an occasional social companion, becomes a steady presence. Nights blur together. Dancing, laughter, conversation. Everything happens under the pill's soft influence. Coordination, memory, and awareness start slipping quietly. The social landscape begins to normalize overuse. Clubs, bars, and private parties no longer just tolerate the haze, they depend on it. Guests float lazily, conversations lag, and performances feel smooth only because the chemical cushion dampens nerves and missteps alike. Everyone is participating, but the line between enjoyment and dependence begins to fade. You start noticing the subtle signals. People showing up late, staying longer, asking for just one more. a soft collective shrug when someone mentions moderation. The lewds facilitate indulgence, and indulgence becomes expected. Nights are longer, bodies slower, minds foggier. The consequences exist, but the crowd moves too harmoniously in the haze to acknowledge them clearly. And then there's the combination with other substances. Alcohol is still present, sometimes generously. The chemical partnership amplifies both pleasure and risk. Coordination becomes trickier. Memory becomes fragmented. Nights feel like slow-motion adventures, sometimes thrilling, sometimes dangerous. You float through the scene, aware only in part, carried by a mixture of music, lights, and chemical sedation. Yet despite all this, the culture continues to glamorize the experience. Friends laugh off overuse. The media, music, and social references depict lewds as essential to the disco lifestyle. Popularity and allure overshadow caution. It is a soft, collective denial, like a shared wink at risk, while the night carries everyone forward. You see how addiction creeps in quietly. Social pressure and cultural normalization make it easy to rationalize repeated use. What once was a controlled aid for sleep or nerves has become a recreational necessity for a decade that prizes calm, charm, and delayed reactions. The nights stretch endlessly. The music pulses. Lights spin. People laugh. The pill hums quietly beneath it all, smoothing edges, softening falls, and prolonging movement in slow, seductive waves. And with each passing night, the line between enjoyment and overuse becomes less distinct. You float in this world, part participant, part observer. The disco haze is intoxicating. It feels safe, controlled, and even glamorous. But in the shadows of all that softness, a quiet reckoning waits, one that the music, the lights, and the collective bliss cannot fully obscure. By the end of the night, you feel the duality, bliss and risk, calm and consequence. The pill has become more than a tool. It is a culture, a lifestyle, and a slowly growing problem all at once. And you, still floating, feel the first hint of tension beneath the softness. What began in the quiet halls of doctors' offices has spilled decisively into the streets. You notice the shift without fully realizing it. Quaaludes are no longer just prescriptions. They are commodities, passed hand to hand, quietly traded in social circles, whispered about in back rooms, and sold in nightclubs like contraband candy. The pharmacy, once the centre of distribution, has been bypassed. Doctors still prescribe them, but the new reality is that access has democratized. Anyone who wants a taste can now find it. The pill has escaped the polite constraints of medical oversight and entered a world that doesn't ask questions, count doses, or remind you to avoid alcohol. It simply exists to smooth nights, soften anxieties, and make bodies pleasantly wobbly. You see the allure immediately. For someone who once needed a prescription, buying one casually feels illicit in a fun, harmless way. It feels like skipping the line in life's rigid order, entering a parallel universe where rules are soft and consequences feel distant. Everyone knows someone who knows someone, and suddenly the pill is everywhere. The culture changes again. What was once private, quietly slipping a lewd before bed, becomes social, recreational, and critically abundant. Parties become chemical ecosystems. The pill is currency, a social lubricant, a shared secret. You hand one over, someone gives one back. Trust and indulgence mingle in soft, drug-hazed interactions. And with abundance comes experimentation. People mix doses, combine with alcohol, stay out longer, dance longer, talk longer, float in a haze that feels endless. You witness both mastery and miscalculation. Coordination falters. Memory fragments. Decisions become softer, slower, more impulsively charming. You realize that the social fabric is now chemically woven. Dealers are quiet and efficient. They don't lecture. They don't impose rules. Their business is simple: provide access to calm, charisma, and sleep in a convenient pill. The pill's aura, once carefully controlled by medical authority, is now entirely cultural. Its social cachet outweighs the cautionary labels. You begin to see the tension. There is fun, glamour, community, and freedom, but also risk, subtle and unspoken. Nights may stretch too long, memory may fail, coordination may falter, habits can harden before anyone notices. The pill is still soft, slow, and alluring, but it now carries a weight it never did when confined to medicine cabinets. And yet, nobody seems to stop. Dealers supply the demand, parties accommodate the haze, and the cultural rhythm continues. The pill has grown larger than its original purpose. It is no longer just a sedative, it is a social force, a tool of escapism, and a quietly building challenge for the future. You float through this world aware of both sides, the comfort and the danger, but participating willingly. History is unfolding around you in soft waves of chemical calm, laughter, and slow motion. The pill is everywhere, and you, like everyone else, are swept along. By the early 80s, the media has caught on. Quaaludes are no longer whispered about in private. They are shouted, glamorized, and occasionally critiqued in magazines, tabloids, and gossip columns. You notice the headlines. Actors, musicians, and socialites casually mentioned alongside the pill, their reputations wrapped in soft focus glamour. The coverage is contradictory. On one hand, ludes are portrayed as playful, fashionable, part of the lifestyle of the effortlessly cool. On the other hand, subtle warnings emerge, stories of mishaps, faint hints at dependency, but these are often buried beneath the allure of celebrity. You read the articles while reclining, pill-induced calm, softening your reaction. The warnings feel like background noise. Quaaludes become shorthand for a certain kind of weekend indulgence. Pop songs mention them, comedy sketches parody them, and movies depict soft, carefree nights punctuated by their slow-motion influence. The pill is woven into the cultural fabric. You start noticing references everywhere: music, films, fashion, even casual conversations in the office. This normalization is potent. It doesn't scream danger, it whispers glamour. The pill is a prop for charisma, a secret ingredient for smooth social performance. People admire those who handle their ludes with grace, further encouraging recreational use. You observe it quietly. The more visible it becomes, the more invisible the risk seems. Media attention also drives curiosity. People who never had prescriptions now want in. The pill becomes aspirational. Owning it, passing it around, using it correctly, it is now a symbol of belonging to a certain social tier. You watch as demand rises quietly but persistently, fueled by curiosity and cultural reinforcement. But with the shine comes scrutiny. Investigative stories begin to highlight overuse, accidents, and the growing black market. Law enforcement takes notice, though often after the pill has already woven itself into everyday social life. You see the first signs of pushback, slow and bureaucratic, yet inevitable. The cultural soft haze is starting to face a harder edge. For now, however, the pill still feels like a friend. Nights remain long, laughter remains slow, and the music drifts softly around bodies moving in gentle, chemically enhanced rhythms. The media can talk, write, and speculate, but the lived experience remains indulgent, smooth, and strangely alluring. And you, floating through these early headlines and pop culture references, begin to sense that the story is shifting. Popularity is waning. Concern is rising. The social darling that lulled an entire generation into slow-motion bliss is slowly stepping onto a stage where consequences are about to become more visible. Yet tonight, in this moment, the pill is still soft, the world is mellow, and the cultural beat carries on as if nothing will ever interrupt it. You drift along, part of the rhythm, part of the story, and blissfully unaware of the turn the narrative is about to take. By the mid-1980s, whispers of caution are no longer whispers. Doctors, parents, and law enforcement start noticing patterns: overdoses, accidental deaths, and stories of people slipping into dependence. The soft glamour of Quaaludes begins to crack. You feel it in the air, a subtle shift from indulgence to concern. The public begins asking questions. Headlines become less playful, more cautionary. Ludes? Fun or danger? One article reads. The narrative is changing. What was once a symbol of social sophistication is now under scrutiny. People start to realize that the soft, floating calm comes at a cost that isn't always gentle. You notice subtle changes in social behavior. Friends who once casually passed ludes at parties now talk in hushed tones. People laugh less confidently. Nights out lose a little of their soft, carefree magic. Even the music, the lights, the haze, all the sensory comforts feel slightly overshadowed by a growing awareness that the pill can be dangerous. Lawmakers and health officials step in. Regulations tighten. Prescriptions are harder to obtain. Dealers face increased scrutiny. The once pervasive, culturally accepted pill is now partially criminalized. You can feel it in every nightclub and living room. The chemistry that once smoothed life is under pressure. And yet, human behavior is stubborn. People continue to use the pill, often hiding it more carefully, negotiating dosage more cautiously, and maintaining social rituals under a veil of secrecy. The allure hasn't completely disappeared. It has simply become riskier, more fraught, and slightly taboo. Stories circulate of social and health consequences. Accidents, overdoses, and dependency stories reach the public. Parents worry, doctors warn, and users realize that what was once effortless fun may carry consequences they hadn't imagined. The pill's identity shifts again, from glamorous tool to potential hazard. You observe the tension as a participant and observer. Nights are slower, still soft, but tinged with awareness. Cultural cachet still exists, but it now shares space with caution. The soft haze feels a little thinner. Conversations are quieter. Laughter is slightly more tentative. The world is in transition. Quaaludes are no longer just a social lubricant or a medical aid. They are a problem being recognized by society. The carefree 1970s and early 80s glow has dimmed. The story that began in quiet medical offices is now part of public debate, health policy, and law enforcement discussions. And you, drifting through this cultural shift, sense that the story of the pill is moving toward its final chapters. The era of smooth calm, slow-motion charm, and disco-era indulgence is fading. What remains is a cautionary tale wrapped in the echoes of music, laughter, and chemical bliss. The world is softer, slower, but also sobering, and you feel it in every step, glance, and heartbeat. Suddenly, the softness is gone. Quaaludes, once the darling of social scenes, Hollywood, and dance floors, are now branded a public enemy. Laws tighten, prescriptions vanish, dealers disappear, or become fugitives. The culture that celebrated calm, slow-motion nights must now contend with criminalization and stigma. You notice the stark shift everywhere. Nightclubs feel tense. Conversations are quieter. Passing a pill that once signaled sophistication now carries the risk of legal consequences. The once playful indulgence has turned into a serious liability. People who were casual users face judgment, scrutiny, or worse. Media coverage intensifies. Stories of addiction, overdose, and illegal distribution dominate headlines. The glamour of the past decade is replaced with cautionary tales. You read about socialites who stumbled, celebrities who faltered, and ordinary people who paid a price for their pursuit of mellow charm. It feels dramatic, but also inevitable. The social landscape changes almost overnight. Parties are different. People hesitate. The rhythm that once carried everyone in slow, soft motion now stutters with unease. Even memories of the pill's glory days seem distant, tinged with the irony of what was once celebrated and is now condemned. You see the effect on behaviour. Those who relied on Quaaludes must adapt. Nights out feel sharper, longer, and less forgiving. Conversations lose their soft haze. Social anxiety, which had been chemically suppressed, returns with a vengeance. Life seems suddenly more demanding, less forgiving, harsher than the chemically softened reality you once knew. Cultural memory begins to codify. Quaaludes are no longer a party accessory. They are a cautionary tale. They represent the risks of indulgence, the dangers of dependency, and the consequences of a substance that outpaced regulation, medical oversight, and social moderation. And yet nostalgia persists. Those who experienced the pill in its golden era remember the charm, the slow-motion laughter, the ease of social interaction, and the mellow magic of nights softened chemically. You can see why some continue to speak of the era wistfully, even as the world closes the chapter. The fall is total but instructive. The era of calm, smooth charm, so perfectly timed with disco beats and cultural indulgence, has ended. Quaaludes are now firmly in the public consciousness as dangerous, illegal, and emblematic of a fleeting period when society flirted with chemically induced sociability. You, floating through this transition, feel both the loss and the lessons. The party is over. The glamour has dimmed. The soft haze has lifted. And you are left with a story that is both cautionary and oddly mesmerizing, a reflection on desire, culture, and the impermanence of indulgence. The era of the lewds is gone, but the echo of its charm lingers, like music fading at dawn. By the mid-1980s, the full weight of law enforcement descends. The DEA classifies Quaaludes as a Schedule I substance, placing them in the same category as drugs considered highly addictive with no accepted medical use. Suddenly, what was once socially ubiquitous and glamorous is criminalized overnight. You notice the practical consequences immediately. Pharmacies no longer stock them. Prescriptions vanish. Dealers go underground. Parties, once soft, carefree, and chemically synchronized, become clandestine affairs. Passing a pill, once a casual gesture, is now a legal risk. The very social currency that Quaaludes represented has vanished almost overnight. Media coverage intensifies. Newspapers run stories about arrests, seizures, and clandestine operations targeting lewd distribution networks. Celebrities who once spoke casually about using the pill are now silent, cautious, and careful with their public image. You feel the tension ripple through cultural memory. The golden haze of the 70s and early 80s has collided with the hard edge of law and consequence. The crackdown also reshapes behaviour. Social rituals around the pill become secretive. Conversations that were once light-hearted and shared openly are now whispered. Users begin rationing, hiding, or abandoning the pill entirely. The soft calm that everyone relied on becomes elusive. Nights out, once a ballet of slow-motion charm, now feel sharper, more conscious, more alert. You sense the irony. The pill that promised ease and smooth social grace is now a source of anxiety. The very substance designed to calm nerves now generates them, as fear of legal repercussions replaces chemical sedation. Life has become paradoxically harder after an era of chemical ease. health professionals begin emphasizing the dangers of overuse and abuse. Stories circulate of dependency, accidents, and social fallout. The soft, glamorous image of Quaaludes is replaced with cautionary headlines and stern advice. The cultural conversation shifts from indulgence to risk, from charm to consequence. And yet, remnants persist. Those who remember the golden age of the Ludes recall the evenings of laughter, slow dances, and gentle calm. Nostalgia exists alongside legal reality. The stories of indulgence are now stories of history, a fading echo of a time when life could feel chemically soft and socially forgiving. You observe the cultural shift quietly. The era of smooth, mellow charm is over. Law, media, and social awareness have converged to end the golden age of the pill. And as you drift through this chapter of history, you realize that what once seemed playful and harmless was always destined to collide with reality. The DEA's intervention ensures that Quaaludes, once a symbol of social ease and cultural indulgence, are now firmly relegated to history. The world moves on, leaving behind memories of a soft, slow-motion era that, like all fleeting pleasures, could not last. Even as legal restrictions take hold, Quaaludes don't disappear entirely. You notice how the pill migrates to shadowy corners of nightlife, whispered about in secret gatherings, and passed discreetly among trusted friends. The same substance that was once celebrated is now dangerous, illicit, and stigmatized. The culture adapts. Parties are smaller, quieter, more clandestine. Users move with caution, aware that possession could lead to arrest. The social lubrication that Ludes once provided is now accompanied by anxiety, a subtle tension that wasn't present in the carefree golden era. The soft haze remains, but it is now shadowed by the risk of consequences. You also observe social judgment evolving. People who continue to use Ludes are no longer admired for sophistication or calm. They are whispered about, sometimes pitied, sometimes ostracized. The pill, once a fashionable accessory, has become a symbol of both rebellion and caution. Social perception changes as quickly as legal frameworks. Use becomes quieter, more deliberate. No longer a casual part of nightlife, Ludes are now carefully measured, often combined with other substances in secrecy. The culture shifts from collective enjoyment to discreet indulgence. The social rhythm that once made everyone move in slow, soft synchronization now fractures. Everyone negotiates their own pace, individually aware of the risks. You can sense the tension between nostalgia and reality. Older users remember the golden era fondly: soft music, mellow laughter, slow motion charm. Younger participants, however, enter a world where the pill is both alluring and dangerous, glamorous and criminalized. This duality creates a culture of secrecy, whispered tips and private memories. At the same time, cautionary tales circulate. Accidents, dependency, and overdoses are no longer isolated whispers. They shape the social understanding of the pill. Those who remember the carefree times are aware of the contrast. Fun has become risk. Social lubrication has become liability. You notice subtle adaptations in behavior. Conversations are slower, movements more careful, interactions more deliberate. People are aware of the legal and social stakes, yet the pill still carries its soft allure. The chemical calm persists, even as the world surrounding it has hardened. And so, the lewd culture persists, quietly in pockets. What was once ubiquitous is now hidden. What was celebrated is now whispered. You drift through this era as both observer and participant, noticing the soft chemical calm juxtaposed with the sharp edge of stigma, risk, and law. The story of Quaaludes in this period is no longer just one of indulgence. It is a story of adaptation, survival, secrecy, and the quiet endurance of a once celebrated chemical that society has decided must now exist in shadows. The haze remains, but the world has changed around it. As underground use continues, the long-term effects of Quaaludes become impossible to ignore. Stories of dependence, liver damage, and dangerous interactions with alcohol surface. You begin to understand that the soft calm of the past came with a hidden price, a price that manifests slowly, almost imperceptibly, until it can no longer be denied. Users report sleep disturbances, cognitive slowing, and emotional blunting. Nights once filled with laughter and dancing now occasionally end with nausea, dizziness, or regret. The pill that promised sociability and relaxation has a darker side. Its chemical seduction leaves traces that accumulate over time. Medical professionals increasingly warn the public. Research studies, case reports, and clinical observations highlight the physical and psychological risks. Quaaludes, once a minor sedative, are now associated with serious health consequences, a stark contrast to the glamour of the disco-era heyday. You notice the irony. What society once celebrated as a symbol of sophistication, smooth social behaviour, effortless charm, slow-motion bliss, is now recast as a cautionary tale. The same cultural forces that elevated the pill to fame also contribute to its reputation for harm. Stories circulate of long-term users struggling with dependency. Simple tasks become difficult without the chemical buffer. Relationships strain under the weight of habitual use. Sleep, once the original medical purpose of the pill, becomes unpredictable. The haze of the past fades into sharper realities. Yet even as these warnings emerge, some continue to use Quaaludes secretly, drawn by nostalgia or the desire for social lubrication. The allure of soft calm, slow movements, and gentle laughter persists, even when weighed against the health consequences that now define the pill in public consciousness. You begin to see the full arc of the Quaaludes story, from medical novelty to social accessory, from glamorous indulgence to criminalized substance, and finally to a drug whose effects on the body and mind cannot be ignored. The narrative has shifted from celebration to caution. The cultural memory of Ludes is now split. Those who experienced the golden era remember the charm, the slow motion, and the gentle hum of nights softened chemically. Newer users encounter warnings, restrictions, and stigma. The pill's legacy is both nostalgic and sobering, a chemical artifact of a time when pleasure outpaced prudence. You, observing and reflecting, realize that the soft haze of the past had limits. The consequences are subtle but accumulating, and the story of Quaaludes now includes both pleasure and peril. Nights of bliss are replaced with lessons about moderation, risk, and the impermanence of chemically induced calm. And so, the narrative continues to unfold. Quaaludes are no longer just fun. They are a symbol of human desire, social experimentation, and the inevitable consequences that follow when a society flirts too long with chemical indulgence. Even after legal crackdowns, health warnings, and the end of widespread use, Quaaludes leave an indelible mark on popular culture. You notice references in films, music, and literature that hint at the soft, slow-motion world of disco-era indulgence. The pill becomes shorthand for a bygone era, a symbol of leisure, glamour, and chemically softened time. Older generations reminisce. They recall nights of laughter stretching longer than the clock allowed, dances that felt effortlessly choreographed by chemistry, and social interactions smoothed by the subtle haze. There is nostalgia, tinged with irony, for a time when life itself felt slightly slower, gentler, and more forgiving. Artists and writers capture the essence of the pill in stories and songs. The Ludes are not the main character, but they are the invisible hand-shaping mood, behaviour, and atmosphere. You can almost hear the soft rhythm in the music, feel the gentle sway in dance scenes, and sense the mellow humour in dialogue inspired by the era. And yet, nostalgia is complicated. The memory of fun exists alongside awareness of danger. You read interviews and memoirs recalling nights of charm and charisma while acknowledging dependency, misadventures, and societal backlash. The pill's legacy is both enchanting and cautionary. Pop culture immortalizes the pill even as reality has moved on. Television shows, documentaries, and memoirs depict Quaaludes as emblematic of the 70s and early 80s, a chemical companion to a time of experimentation, glamour, and excess. The pill becomes a symbol of a lifestyle, a mood, and a social rhythm, even decades later. You notice how the pill informs modern references to retro indulgence. It represents both freedom and folly, the thrill of soft rebellion and the consequences of overuse. Quaaludes, in memory and media, carry a dual identity: glamorous and dangerous, charming and cautionary, fleeting and enduring. The cultural imprint is enduring. Even people who never took a lude recognize the stories, the jokes, and the aesthetic of the era it shaped. You can see it in fashion, in music videos, in films that recreate the disco glow and the languid elegance of nights softened chemically. For those who experienced it firsthand, the nostalgia is bittersweet. You remember the calm, the charm, the laughter, but also the consequences, the legal and health implications, and the eventual disappearance of the golden haze. The pill is both a memory and a lesson, a chemical artifact of a time when indulgence outpaced caution. You, drifting through these reflections, sense that the legacy of Quaaludes is not just in their chemical effects, but in the cultural story they left behind. The era was soft, slow, and glamorous, but fleeting. And the echoes of those nights still ripple quietly through history, music, and memory. The story is now one of nostalgia, reflection, and the gentle understanding that even the most charming indulgences have limits, consequences, and a place in the collective memory of a society that once floated very softly on the haze of a tiny pill. Looking back, the story of Quaaludes is as much about human behaviour as it is about chemistry. You notice patterns repeating: desire for calm, for social ease, for indulgence without consequence. The pill offered these things, and society eagerly accepted them, but the lessons were quietly accumulating in the background. Dependency, overuse, and accidents teach a clear, if soft-spoken, message. Even gentle pleasures have limits. You realize how easily culture normalized risk, how glamorized indulgence blurred caution, and how social pressure encouraged experimentation. The smooth haze of disco-era nights obscured consequences until they could no longer be ignored. Medical and legal authorities respond in ways that shape future generations. Prescriptions tighten, educational campaigns emerge, and media coverage shifts from glamour to caution. Quaaludes become a case study in the intersection of medicine, culture, and human desire. You notice the irony. A pill designed to relieve anxiety and promote sleep became a social phenomenon whose risks were underestimated, and yet the lessons are nuanced. Quaaludes also illustrate resilience, creativity, and the human pursuit of calm and connection. People use the pill to smooth social interaction, relieve stress, and enjoy life's moments with softer edges. It was both indulgent and functional, pleasurable and problematic, a duality that mirrors many social phenomena. You see parallels in modern substances and behaviours. Cultural fascination, normalization, and casual indulgence often precede regulation and caution. Quaaludes offer a blueprint. Pleasure is seductive, glamour amplifies risk, and collective experience can obscure individual consequences until they become undeniable. The story is not simply moralistic, it is reflective. You feel the tension between enjoyment and consequence, freedom and regulation, nostalgia and caution. The golden haze of the past exists in memory, but it is inseparable from the lessons of risk, responsibility, and the impermanence of chemically softened social life. You begin to sense that the ultimate lesson is balance. The pill offered a brief glimpse of effortless calm, but reality always asserts itself. Human desire, chemical influence, and social behavior must coexist with consequences, awareness, and responsibility. The story of Quaaludes is a meditation on this tension, quietly revealing truths about society, pleasure, and human nature. And so, as you drift through this reflection, you understand that history is rarely simple. Quaaludes were fun, seductive, and socially transformative, but they were also dangerous, fleeting, and instructive. Their story is soft in memory, sharp in lesson, and enduring in cultural consciousness. You realize that the pill, the parties, and the golden haze all serve as a reminder. Indulgence can be beautiful, but awareness, moderation, and reflection are what allow history and people to survive, learn, and move forward. The narrative, once soft and slow, now leaves you gently pondering human nature, cultural excess, and the ephemeral magic of a time when life was chemically cushioned, socially buoyant, and intoxicatingly, dangerously soft. Hollywood adored Quaaludes. You notice how the pill became a backstage secret, a social lubricant at movie premieres, industry parties, and late-night sets. Actors and musicians moved through the haze with a languid charm, delivering lines, smiles, and improvisation that seemed effortless, though sometimes suspiciously uncoordinated. The pill's softening effect enhanced charisma. Conversations stretched, laughter lingered, and tensions dissolved. Studios and agents whispered about the subtle benefits, calm performers, smooth networking, and nights that felt longer and more glamorous than they were. Hollywood's elite embraced the chemistry, fueling both their social lives and the media's fascination. And yet, even here, consequences emerged. You notice the pattern: dependency, memory lapses, and occasional public embarrassment. Behind the glimmering parties, the soft haze could become a trap. Celebrities who once floated through life with ease found themselves negotiating a world that moved faster than their chemically softened perception. Stories circulate, both in gossip columns and in memoirs, of nights gone awry, mishaps on set, and the occasional scandal. You realize the pill was both a prop for charm and a silent risk. Hollywood glamorized indulgence, but it could not shield anyone from the physical and social consequences that quietly accumulated. The pill also became a cultural shorthand. When movies or shows referenced lewds, they conveyed sophistication, indulgence, or rebellion. Hollywood codified the image: slow-motion smiles, languid gestures, and parties softened by chemistry. The visual language was unmistakable, and audiences outside the industry began to imitate, emulate, or aspire to it. And so the pill's influence spread beyond parties. It shaped public perception, fed gossip, and influenced popular culture, creating a feedback loop between celebrity use and social fascination. You see how desirability amplified use, and how glamour made consequences feel distant, abstract, or temporary. Even as regulations and health warnings emerged, the Hollywood legend persisted. Nostalgia mingled with cautionary tales, creating a layered cultural memory. Quaaludes became iconic, representing not only indulgence, but also the fragile boundary between charisma and excess. You drift through these reflections, seeing both the allure and the danger. Hollywood made the pill famous, gave it cultural cachet, and immortalized it in stories, images, and memories. The golden haze of slow-motion charm was as much a product of perception as of chemistry, and the consequences remained largely invisible until hindsight illuminated them. The story of Quaaludes in Hollywood is soft, shimmering, and intoxicating, like a lingering spotlight on a forgotten stage. Charm, indulgence, and risk existed side by side, forming a narrative that is simultaneously nostalgic, glamorous, and sobering. And you, floating through the glitter and haze, sense how easily culture can turn a chemical curiosity into a legend, and how legends, like pills, can leave both a warm glow and a sharp lesson in their wake. Finally, the era of Quaaludes comes to a close. You notice how quickly the golden haze dissolves once laws, public awareness, and health consequences converge. Pharmacies no longer stock them, nightclubs adjust, dealers disappear or shift focus. The soft chemical rhythm that once defined social life is gone, leaving only memory and nostalgia in its place. You reflect on the cultural footprint. Quaaludes were not just a drug, they were a symbol, a social lubricant, a chemical muse for disco, Hollywood, and late-night revelry. They transformed behaviour, slowed time, and gave people a fleeting sense of ease and charm. And yet, their very success sowed the seeds of decline. Overuse, dependence, legal intervention, and public concern conspired to end the party. The story now exists in reflections, memoirs, films, and cultural memory. You notice that the pill continues to evoke fascination, curiosity, and even wistful nostalgia. People speak of the soft calm, the slow-motion laughter, the effortless social grace, but always with an awareness of the risks, the legal issues, and the long-term consequences. You realize the duality of the era. Quaaludes offered pleasure, social lubrication, and temporary calm, but they also introduced danger, dependence, and legal scrutiny. Life softened chemically can feel effortless, but it is never without cost. The lessons are subtle, quiet, and in hindsight, invaluable. And yet there is beauty in the memory. Nights of music, laughter, and chemically induced calm exist in collective consciousness as a fleeting, shimmering period. The pill story is part cautionary, part enchanting, a reminder of how culture, chemistry, and desire can combine to create both magic and risk. You sense the finality. The golden haze of Quaaludes has faded. The parties, the glamour, the slow-motion charm, all are gone. What remains is history, memory, and the cultural imprint of a chemical that once made life feel soft and gentle. And as you drift through this reflection, you recognize that the story of Quaaludes is not just about a pill. It is about society, indulgence, human desire, and the ephemeral nature of pleasure. The era is over, but its echo lingers, a soft, slow-moving reminder of a time when life itself could be temporarily softened, gently, chemically, and dangerously beautiful.